I'm going to talk about a different way of iterating through collections. Now when I say a collection, I mean an array list. So this is going to be about how to traverse an array or an array list using a ForEach statement. It's a little bit different than a normal for loop, and it is something that you need to know about. It will absolutely be on the AP exam. And actually, it's in many ways, it's an easier way. Once you catch on to it, it's an easier way of iterating through an array or an array list. So just to review, this is a standard way of going through an array. So here I have an array called nums. It's an array of integer values. The integer values are 90210, 90210, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, so here I have a for loop. This is a normal for loop, starts from 0 and goes to the length of the array, actually less than the length. You know how that whole business works. And I'm just printing out every item in the array. Nums x will be equal to each item here, and I'll run it super quick. And you can see that in fact it prints out 90210. Those are the items in my array. So just to compare now, I have written this using a ForEach loop. Again, this is called a ForEach loop. Sometimes it's called an enhanced for loop. You should be familiar with both of these terms. So just to compare, here I have written it using a ForEach loop. And I'm going to read through it as I would read through it to myself. I do this every time. This says, for each integer n in nums. So the format of this is you have to say what type of item that is in the either array or array list. This is an array of ints. N is my temporary variable, which is going to be set to each item. And nums is the name of this array list. Just to be clear though, n is not an index. Like in the case up here, x does not actually refer to each item. X is just an index into the array. So if I want the item up here in a normal for loop, I say nums x. Down here, n is actually going to be equal to each item in the array. So let me read through this again. I would say for each int n in nums, and this is a colon here. The format's a little weird. This is going to iterate through each one, and n is going to be set equal to each item. Notice I don't have to say for 0 to the length of the thing. N is just going to be set equal to each actual item in this array right here. So if I run this and print it out, you'll see n will get set to 9, then 0, then 210 will print out the whole thing. And actually maybe I will get rid of this for loop right here, and I'll just compile and run it. And you can see this will work beautifully. 90210. So that works perfectly. One thing you have to be careful of, though, is n is really just a temporary variable that's getting set to each item here. So unlike in a normal for loop, I could, for example, within the for loop, I could say something like if nums x equals 0, I could set it to another value. Here I can't. I mean, if I say something like if n is equal to 0, maybe I'll change the value of n, set n to 999 or something like that. So this is basically saying if I find the value 0, I'm setting it to 999. So we could try that, and just to see if it worked or not, I could print out the for loop again and see if any values actually got set. I hope this is making sense to you. So let me compile this, and I will run it again. And so here 90210, and then here it is again, 90210. So in fact, I'm not able to change a value using this ForEach loop, within the ForEach loop. I'm not allowed to do it this way. Now, if n happened to be an object, I could run methods on that object. But the point is that n is just a temporary variable that's getting set to each item. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's just do one more example pretty quick here. So here is an array list. Again, ForEach loops, you're really only going to use them for going through either arrays or array lists. So here is my array list example. Oops, let's just get rid of that top example. So here I have an array list of string items. It's called fruits. and I'm adding a bunch of items. So my array list consists of orange, apple, pear, banana, and I'm just going to iterate through this array list. So let me read this again. The way you read this is for each, again, sometimes this is called a ForEach loop, for each string x in fruits, repeat this loop. So again, the type of the item that's in the array or array list happens to be a string items. X is actually each item. Again, x is not the index, x is the actual item. And again, this is just the name of the array list. So I'm just going to print it out again, and hopefully you kind of get what's going on here. And in fact, it printed out my array list: orange, apple, pear, banana. So again, a little warning: you cannot, you can't do much inside of a for each loop. Like I could not, for example, start deleting items. If I said remove X, in fact, it would not remove the item from the array list, or add items to the array list. You can't really do that. You can check to see if a value is there, and you could run methods on the object. But again, X is actually a temporary variable that's pointing to the actual object in the array list. So hopefully this makes sense, and you're going to need to do a little bit of practice with ForEach loops, or the enhanced for loop, as they're also known. All right.